It's not 5 o'clock, and they don't care. Welcome to Wine to 5. Entertainment, education, and everyday drinking for everyday people. Your hosts are Valerie Caruso and Stephanie Davis, two wine educators who don't need a clock to know when to pour that next glass.
Happy Thanksgiving, Val, and welcome back from the Wine Bloggers Conference.
Oh, thank you so much. We are recording on Beaujolais Nouveau Day, a week before Turkey Day, or Turkey Thank You Day, or Thanksgiving Day, or American Eating Holiday, whatever it is. But I thank you for pointing out what day it is, because I don't know anymore. Like, there was a Zinfandel Day, a Beaujolais Day. I don't know what to open or just keep drinking the Pinot I got open now. I have no clue.
Yeah, well, that works too. But, I think we got everybody covered with Zin Day and Beauj Day because we had those episodes previously. So if anybody's like, I don't really know that much about Beaujolais or Zinfandel, they can take a look back at episode 52 for the Zin and episode 88 for the Beauj. So I think, that fits, but I don't know that I'm actually going to be even having either one of those at Thanksgiving, but I certainly didn't have any in the house today to even pour myself a glass for Beaujolais Nouveau Day. I thought about going shopping, but I didn't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would involve like leaving the house and putting on clothing outside of my sweatpants. So no, I just got what was open. So what are you drinking then? If you're not drinking a Beauj or a Zin or we just finished Merlot month or whatever the hell, what do you got?
Yeah. Well, I have a Chocolina, and I think we may have talked about it before, or maybe one of us drank some on the show. But mine is a 2012, and since it's 2017, it's 5 years old, and I think it's too old.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Because Chocolina should really be consumed in its youth.
Yes.
And so I didn't really think that much about it when I bought it, because I just bought it recently. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to let my retailer know, just so that he's got a heads up for what's left on his shelf. But this is kind of past its really zippy freshness that it should have. And you can see the color. It's gotten really golden. But yeah. So this one, the producer is Luisa de Ripa. Or I'm sorry, that is actually the name of the wine because it was named after this female monk.
Is it Lucia de Ripa?
Lucia de Ripa.
Okay.
Yeah. But the name of the producer is Arzobro Chocolina. Just as a refresher, so Chocolina, this is up in the Basque region, and this particular one is from the Oliva subregion. And there's 3 chocolate producing areas in the Basque region, and this is one of them. And that's the one that's the furthest northwest. So that's kind of where we're looking at on a map of Spain. And the grapes here, in this particular bottle, 80 to 90% is Hondarabizuri, but then 10 to 20% is Petit Manseng. And the way that you say it in Basque, Val and I looked and all over Google and all over the world to see how we pronounce this. And this is my best effort right here. Ispiriotsa Chipia. And so that's my best effort at the Basque version of that grape. But I think it means, that we really need to have Rick Fisher from the Wine Scholar Guild's Spanish program to tell us how to properly say that.
Yep, that's right. Rick, I hope you habla euskera, because we're going to be asking you those questions about Basque regional wines. And the Basque culture is so interesting anyway.
Yeah.
I think that would be so much fun. So heads up, Rick. We're going to ask you.
Heads up.
All right.
Watch out. We're coming for you. What are you drinking, Val?
Well, I almost opened a Beaujolais Cru. I don't keep Nouveau in the house. It doesn't age. It's meant to be drunk young, but I love Beaujolais Cru. So again, if you go back to our Beauj episode, I'm a Cru ho. It's just something I think a lot of people don't pay attention to, but I don't have that open. I have Burgundy open. I know. First world problems.
Yeah.
I have in my glass Aurélien Verde. And this is 2014. I think it's still a little young. It's a Moët Saint-Denis Côte de Nuit from France. And I remember I told you that my kitchen is the Côte de Nuit.
Yeah,
for geographical purposes. So this is the shelf where the tea is. the Morey Saint-Denis. Yeah, that's the area where the shelf is. My sink is Chambon-Moussigny. And that's really how I remember the regions from north to south. It's the memory palace thing. And so I'm drinking, like I opened it last night and I said, hey, we're drinking the tea shelf in the cabinet. I think I scored this bottle for maybe $29 off of K&L. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, they do have another one of his wines, more of a Côte de Nuit, not so much a Morey Saint-Denis, and it's like $17 right now. But normally this is probably about a $40 bottle, but I like deals, and this is a good one. So I can't complain. And I'm really enjoying it. It's really got, what's interesting about this wine is when I first opened it, I thought it was almost more New World.
Oh, really?
I would compare this to Oregon, except it has that, I don't know if you ever went to the Body Shop and did all the smells of all the little like oils that they had where you put the own scents in oil.
Oh, yeah. I know what you mean.
Well, I used to wear sandalwood.
Okay, right.
And it's one of my favorite, like I would take the oil and then you would put the essence and then you would take it home. And one of my favorite, there was like a white musk essence and then a sandalwood essence. And I got it from the one in London, I remember. And it just reminds me of that sandalwood essence from the Body Shop. And that to me went, oh, wait a minute. Maybe we're not in Oregon, and of course we're not. But it does have a lot of those really nice fruit, the cherry fruit that we associated with the New World, but then it's got that woodsy thing going on that we associate with Burgundy. So it's pretty nice wine, and, you know, if you're going to do the traditional Turkey Day thing, this would be one of those things that I would put on the table. No problem.
Yeah, it sounds like it's for a good price, too. I mean, any of the wines that we've talked about would be good for Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving is the schizophrenic meal that we've mentioned year after year that you don't really pair. You don't even bother really pairing it because it's all over the place and scattered.
Right. I mean, there's nothing that's going to pair with everything at the table. And I know we're not talking about Thanksgiving pairings, but I'm always an advocate of having at least 2, if not 3 wines on the table. Sparkling and a red, or a white and a red, or rosé. I mean, come on.
Totally.
A rosé and maybe a light-bodied red like the Beaujolais Nouveau.
There you go.
There you go.
Let's go back to this welcome back from the conference because I want you to lay it on us. And I'm going to do kind of an interview style. I'm going to ask you questions.
Okay.
And then, you know, you're like the guest today, Val.
Yay, I'm a guest. I like that. And I get to drink too, so that's good.
That's right.
Yeah.
Get your Burgundy there and get ready. So what was your overall experience like at the conference? And how does it compare to some of the other conferences that you've been to or that you've heard about as far as the wine industry goes?
Well, I don't go to a lot of wine industry conferences because I technically don't consider myself in the industry outside of the educational realm. So Society Wine Educator being my biggest experience with conferences and my favorite time of the year, I would say compared to that, it's not as intense on the education side, but it was educational.
Okay.
From a different perspective. Also different from PodFest, where we were earlier this year. So different focus. But they had breakout sessions, not as many as a giant 5-session concurrent thing like Society Wine Educators did. They had like 2 at a time, and mostly everybody was in one room for certain presentations. So not as many breakout sessions, but I would say, like other conferences, if you can't decide between breakout sessions, that's a normal thing. Like I couldn't decide whether to go, do I go to advanced social media or do I go over here where they're talking about something else? So it was hard to decide what to go to sometimes, but not as big of a conundrum as when you have 5 choices staring in your face. So I like that they have it narrowed down to 2 choices. The best part, I think, is they left a lot of time for networking. There was plenty of time to talk to people and get to meet people that I've only tweeted with or at or have read about or read their stuff or have interacted with online.
Virtual relationships.
Which is so common in this day and age.
Yeah.
So getting to meet people in person was really awesome. And getting to meet people that, I mean, I'd fangirled about, which I'll talk about in a minute. And also having I made plenty of time on the beginning and the end of the conference to have interviews outside the conference. I mean, there were people I've wanted to interview for a long time that I was able to schedule interviews with and people at the conference. So it was just like this really good blend of got to go to a winery tour, but wasn't like winery tours all day long. Got to go back to my room and take a nap if I needed to. Got to have great meals at wineries, meet winemakers, meet other wine writers. And so there was so many good little things put together that I found it to be a very balanced experience.
That's cool. How many people would you say were there?
300, I believe the last count was like 326 maybe, 300 and something. So it wasn't as big as Society Wine Educators, but it was big enough where there were still people there that I tweet at that I still never got to meet. I'm like, is this person at the conference?
Wow.
I see them on Instagram or Twitter, but I don't know where they are.
Right. Just big enough where you can't find people.
Right. So there were people I would have liked to have met that I've interacted with online that I still never even saw, not even a clue that they were there except on their social media feed, which is interesting.
You gave us like some of the highlights, but what other things really stood out? And I know you had some kind of cannabis wine experience, so you have to share something about that.
Oh, yeah. We've talked about it on the show before. I'll get to that in a minute. But I would say the highlights were definitely the interviews. I spent all morning today finally downloading these things from the field recorder and kind of setting them up to make episodes out of them. First of all, I was absolutely chuffed to bits to meet Andrea Robinson. She was one of my very first wine professional influences from way back when she was Andrea Immer Robinson. And there were a few shows that she hosted I used to watch. And of course, I go up to her and say, I remember when you were Andrea Immer, and I remember Simply Wine and Great Pairings. In fact, I made that vegetable soup from that show again last night. I live on this vegetable soup. And it used to be on a channel called Fine Living Network during my brief stint that I spent with DirecTV, which wasn't very long. But she was super cool. And I always say that her book, Great Wines Made Simple, is always one of the very first ones that I advise beginners to turn to when they're first learning to taste wine, because she really does make wine approachable. And she was one of my early impressions about wines and styles and even brands and touring vineyards and, you know, special occasion wines versus everyday wines versus once in a lifetime wines. She was my kind of touchstone for where I would go eventually with wine education, and I didn't even realize it. So it was really an honor to meet her. She's super cool.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, so that was one of the highlights. And of course, speaking of interesting people, well, I got to hang out and drink beer with the We Like Drinking dudes.
Yo, I bet that was so much fun.
It was a lot of fun. You know, I've met Jeff Eccles before, but the other Jeff I never met, Jeff Solomon. He's just as real in person as he is on his videos and on the podcast. He's just a super cool, laid-back dude with knee socks and plaid shorts. I mean, just a cool dude. And I'd met Jim before. I don't know if you guys remember Jim, but he was from the early episodes of We Like Drinking. Now, he wasn't there, and neither was John. But so I've now met 3 of the original 4 We Like Drinking dudes. So that was fun. And the pot wine. I was sitting with Jeff and Jeff when the guys from Rebel Coast Winery.
Rebel Coast.
I'll have to put a picture of the Instagram layout picture that I put during what they called the live wine blogging session, which is kind of like speed dating. These guys were the first ones to come to the table. They're huge characters, and they explained to us a lot about their wine. And though apparently what I didn't know is that it's illegal to actually combine alcohol and pot. So even though the wine itself, it was wine, it was a Sauvignon Blanc, and they put the marijuana in there while it's fermenting, they take the alcohol out of the wine.
Oh.
So, yeah, and I guess there's still enough of the THC in the wine from the marijuana where you're not going to be like totally stoned, but you're also not going to be drunk. So I didn't swallow it. It's kind of like I didn't inhale.
Yes,
yeah, I didn't swallow
hilarious.
it either. Yeah, so that the problem was it came to the table first during the white and rosé speed round, which meant for the next hour it was all I could smell or taste because it's very, very pungent.
Yeah,
it's very, very herbal, as you can imagine, and like so the next wine came to the table and all I could smell and taste was this stuff. So it was
How
definitely
crazy.
dominant. And it's I gotta say, it's not my taste. But, I got to try it, and I don't have a security clearance anymore, so no big deal. So it was like, whatever, So it's very interesting. I'll definitely link it up, put a picture there, and you guys can check it out if it's the kind of thing you're interested in. I thought they said it was like a $68 bottle, but I don't know if that's right or not. I think on their website it said $28.
Do these guys, do they also produce regular wines, or is everything a marijuana infused? Did you find that out?
They do have other wines.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go to their website, they have a rosé. Let's see. They have regular wine too. Sunday Fun Day Rosé and all that kind of stuff. Their website is very people in bikinis. Kind of has that spring break kind of fun party vibe.
Yeah, party vibe.
MTV rave party vibe thing, but their wines are reasonably priced, and I didn't get to taste any of their other wines, but yeah, they're out there.
Cool.
So the winery is called Rebel Coast, and the website is beautiful if you can get past all the chicks in bikinis. So
some people might really like that. They'll just get lost in the bikinis.
Yeah, it's not my thing.
Well,
but yeah.
Oh, shoot. Well, moving on. I think I saw you post something about the wildfires. Was there a seminar about the Napa wildfires?
There were two. There was one where they talked about just the facts, because a lot of people had the facts wrong. If you're following the events on social media, there are a lot of things that come out. A lot of people will react to or publish kind of prematurely without getting all the facts. Wineries that burned down that didn't. So what we had was an interesting talk by Patsy McGowie of Napa Valley Vintners, George Rose, a photographer, and Pierre Bierbent, and he was the winemaker of Signorello Estates, which was lost, and he talked about his experience. And then there was another session about media response to a crisis, because this kind of thing could happen wherever you are in the wine world. So Sarah Sturch was on there. She's a journalist, as was Virginia Boone, who writes for Wine Enthusiast and lives in the area, and then George Rose again. So there were two different sessions. One focused more on the facts, how many people were displaced, the 8,000 structures that were destroyed, and they gave like a day-by-day account from their perspective and how they reacted and, where the damage was spreading. A lot of response to things people saying about, the wines of the 2017 harvest, they're going to have smoke taint. And they were really not happy with an article that came out, I want to say it was the New York Times, very prematurely, that started to talk about what they thought it was going to mean for the 2017 vintage, when the truth is nobody knows. This kind of thing has never happened before. In this area, most of the wines, most of the grapes were already harvested, with the exception of some of the Cabernet Sauvignon. And what do we know about Cabernet Sauvignon? It is a thick-skinned, tough grape. So some of the wineries were telling me they put their grapes back into the ground, and some of them, it depends. It really depends on how much smoke taint there was in that area. But what they did say that I thought was interesting was that by the time they get done with the pruning and as the vines grow back, because the vines did serve as a natural fire break because they contain so much moisture. But by the time all these vines are pruned over the years, they think by 2019, you're not going to see a lot of evidence of this. So basically what they said was it's going to be a few years before we know the effects. But what's more pressing is the recovery effort now and all of the things that you can do to support the area. Buy wine, first of all. Buy wine from the area. We've put websites up before. I can put them back up there again. The different things you can go do to help, different places you can go to. The North Bay Fire Donation List, I can add that back into the website if you go to northbayfiredonations.com. They had some other things there too. Comfort drinks, where people can have like drinks and glasses delivered to their house if they're like sitting if they're displaced and they just want to have a glass of wine. I mean, there's just so many efforts to help the 1,000+ people who've been displaced by these fires.
That's good.
And think about what's going to happen to rebuild. Everybody can't just rebuild their house at once. There aren't those kind of resources. So that was a terrifying thing. And I did go through some of that burn area on Sunday, not intentionally. I was trying to take a southern route because we've had fires here I still look at the burn scars. We still have neighborhoods that haven't been rebuilt yet, and I can't even. So I remember what it's like to have the air thick with smoke and ash coming down on your porch, and thinking that that's probably what's left of somebody's life. So it was really hard. The Sunday I went out to Napa to interview somebody very special who's actually going to be in a couple weeks, a very special interview on the show. But I mean, his family had to evacuate, and the first house he ever bought, as we looked up into the hills from the Silverado Country Club, you could see structures that were burned. His first house burned down. And to listen to these accounts from people who had to get out, who had to try to fight the fires at the wineries, to drive back a different way, not realizing I was still in the burn area, was a little bit rough. It was hard to see that. It reminded me of a war zone. And I hate to use that term because I've been in a war zone. A lot of people use it. I'm like, well, you haven't been in a war zone, but it did remind me of that. And I'm glad that the fires were put out and that they're not still raging, because we've had fires here in Colorado rage for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Yeah.
So it was very, very sobering. And I think one of the takeaways, if you are listening, if you are a wine writer or you are a podcaster, you don't always have to be first. Everybody wants to be the first person to tweet something. It's usually wrong. Get your facts. And that is something that I thought, you know what, we do try to do that on the show. We try to make sure our sources are credible. We try to make sure we have the facts on things. But the most important thing right now is recovery. And please go out and buy wines from Napa and Sonoma and Mendocino County.
Yeah. For the holidays or for everyday drinking, just support them. And that's right. And that's what we're going to do. That's
Absolutely.
what I've been thinking about it a lot. So,
and you can't help it, because when you go there, I mean, it's very hard to not see evidence of it, and it's going to be there for generations. It's going to be 100 years before our land and the burn scars disappear, and it does have an impact for generations. So I think there was a lot of sensationalizing of it, and that's the part of media that I just don't like. I understand why they do it. I've taken mass media courses, but I don't like the way everything has to be sensationalized. So, and we're not going to sensationalize that at all. We just want people to get their lives back together and understand that wine is not just a luxury. It is a livelihood. It is a way of life. And these people have to put their lives back together. They're people.
Yep.
So
that's right. Well, speaking of people, so you had already kind of tickled us with who you've been interviewing over there. And so tell us a little bit more about who these special people are and what all of our listeners can anticipate in some of these future episodes.
Well, I am just over the moon about this first interview is with a master of wine that I met a few years ago, and we've been trying to get him on the show for a while. So Sunday, he made the time to meet me out in Napa, and I drove out there and sat down with him. He is one of the most interesting and influential educators in the industry, I believe. He's got all different aspects of the industry that he deals with, from education to tourism to what he makes wine. He's a steward for an airline. And so I'm not going to tell you who it is, because he was not part of the wine blogging conference, but it was still one of the highlights of my trip out there. So I'm actually going to keep this one a surprise, because listeners...
Oh, you're a tease. You are such a tease, girl.
I know. And he was absolutely charming. And you guys... It's going to be a treat when we get this episode put together. So I'm not going to tell you who that one is. I'm just going to keep you waiting.
Who else?
I got to also sit down with Cassidy Havens of Alsace Wines. And she is a pro. She's with, is it 2 in Communications? Yeah, she's with 2 in Communications. She's also a diploma holder, and she's the account supervisor for 2 in Communications. And she was there pouring some absolutely stunning wines of Alsace. And what was interesting about this interview with Cassidy, because again, she made time to sit down with me before she had to pour for the reception, Alsace was one of the very first regions she ever studied. So in this interview, we talk about why. And I think listeners are going to be really interested to find out what it is about Alsace wines that are so special, and how we're both perplexed that they're often overlooked, but it actually is one of my favorite regions. And we're going to talk about why that is. So that'll be an episode. We're going to do an episode on Alsace coming up, and you're going to love this interview with Cassidy. She was absolutely delightful. So there was that. And another interview I did was with my hosts. I was fortunate enough to stay with fellow veterans and fellow federal workers and veterans turned Pinot growers. And they were my hosts, Bonnie and Clark. And they're friends of Jen. You know, the fabulous Jen, supporter of the show. We got to have dinner with Jen. You met Jen. And
love her.
Jen, out there being fabulous in the world, connected me with Bonnie and Clark. And what's really cool about their story, I'm thinking about calling it something like From Inside the Beltway to Outside in the Vines or something like that. Because imagine living and working in southeastern D.C., you know, inside the Beltway, you know, right near the mall and everything, and then buying this cottage in the Vines. And it's a little bit more than they wanted, but it's everything they've dreamed of now, and they didn't even realize it. So they grow Pinot Noir. I know. They grow Pinot Noir for Siduri. So if you've had the Siduri Pinot Noir, and they did let me taste the single vineyard, Betty Ann Vineyard. And so literally right outside my window as I drank my coffee, I watched the sun come up over Betty Ann Vineyards, and there were a couple 120-year-old French Colombard vines on the property as well. And I wish I would have gotten more pictures. Seriously, it rained almost the whole time I was there. It was cold and rainy, and I would just sit there in my little cottage with a glass of Pinot and barbecue bourbon quinoa chips and just be happy. And so I didn't really get any pictures of the beautiful property, but I'll have them send some before I post the interview with them. But I've got to thank them. They were so hospitable. They took me to great restaurants. We had some great meals together. And I'll tell you what, it's very cool to live 4 miles outside of Santa Rosa, but you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, but you've got great restaurants and stores and everything like 4 miles away. It's the perfect thing.
Sounds like the sweet spot for sure.
It is the sweet spot. That's another good name for the interview, you know, finding that sweet spot in life. So I have to thank them again. They were seriously wonderful, generous. I could have hung out with them. I mean, they're a lot of fun. And also Clark will be doing a blog soon as well. So once that gets launched, we'll connect you with it because it's a very interesting blog that he's working on.
Cool. So when's the next conference?
Next conference is October of 2018, the first week in October, and it's going to be in Walla Walla.
Cool.
Yes, if you haven't been to Walla Walla, it's we were there last year, and we checked out the different vineyards there and the local community college and all the cool things they're doing. So I think that's a great place for a conference and lots of space. You know, it's not like you're all going to be jammed into a space. I think there's lots of wineries to see, lots of things to do, lots of things to learn, and lots of wine-minded people. But you're still kind of out there in the country, so I think it'll be a nice place.
Well, and it sounds like that size of the size of the Wine Bloggers Conference isn't so large that it becomes difficult to find a venue that holds enough, all those people. So at 300 to 400 people, there's a lot of options.
There are a lot of options, and I will tell you that the one thing the organizers do well, the one thing that Zephyr conferences or Zephyr does well, and you've heard from Zephyr before, they've been on our show. The one thing they do well is they're able to split people out into different excursions. And so each wine dinner is pretty intimate. I think the one night I was supposed to go to a wine dinner, there were supposed to be multiple dinners, but because of the fires, they had to consolidate 2 of the dinners, and they had to get another bus. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there going, wait a minute, I thought we were going to have a pretty intimate wine dinner. Now they're like 80 people going to this wine dinner. And I thought it was going to be an absolute zoo, and it was perfect. It was so well organized. The winery handled all these people. You would have never realized there were 80 people at this wine dinner. The food was outstanding. The transportation was organized. It was well done. It wasn't like you didn't feel the crowd. And so the one thing they're very good at doing is creating that feeling of, yes, there are a lot of people here and a lot of fun people to talk to and things to talk about, but you never felt overwhelmed.
Huh, that is good.
It's really a nice balance, like I said. But should we get to Thanksgiving now, since we're going to be airing on Thanksgiving Day?
Well, maybe just a few gobbles.
We've been gobbling now for 30 minutes, but I'm curious. Full disclosure, we had Thanksgiving the day I got back, Monday evening, because we had family in town. So like, hey, let's just do it all here. Day on a calendar doesn't mean anything to us, just like the time of day doesn't mean anything to us when we're drinking. So
right.
But I'm sure you have Thanksgiving plans. Would you want to share those with the listeners?
Yeah, I do have. I'm excited because my brother is coming out with his wife and kids for the first time. And so we're going to have Thanksgiving all together. And also I found out today that Justin's cousin is coming with her husband and their little 2-month-old. So I'm going to have not a big party, but we're having kind of a non-traditional Thanksgiving menu. But I'm excited. I'm going to make pumpkin risotto, and which is really savory and delicious. And Justin's in charge of the turkey, and I'm making a shaved Brussels sprout salad. But yeah, no mashed potatoes in my house, no green beans, no, all of that other stuff like stuffing. We're not doing that either. But we're going to have a cheese course for dessert.
Yeah, you are.
I'm going to channel Janet Fletcher. And so, like you had mentioned earlier, I'm going to, have maybe 3 or 4 different wines open so people can pick and choose what they want. And then, some good whiskey to end the night, and maybe a few other little things I can find for after dinner. But yeah, so, somewhat simplified for Thanksgiving, but it will be very special, and I'm looking forward to it. So
it sounds great. What time should I be there?
yeah, you're welcome to come.
You're so sweet.
You join the fun, and I would love that.
Oh my gosh. It sounds delicious. When you first were telling me about the menu, I was sitting here drooling. I mean, I'm all about non-traditional, just taking things to the next level. And I think that just sounds absolutely delicious. The pumpkin risotto, the Brussels sprout salad. And even if I do make stuffing, I'll take like a Bobby Flay hazelnut or chestnut recipe. And, there's Brussels sprouts in the stuffing, or prosciutto or something like that. I'll take some off the wall, but we're not having just like out of the box. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, it's got to be weird, or I don't want it.
Well, and I like bread pudding, and so I do like stuffing, and I really love bread pudding. Like, I've had some bread puddings that have, like savory bread puddings that have just knocked my socks off, that have, like leeks and wild mushrooms and, whatever. And I just go crazy for it. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm not making it, because I would probably have like 3 servings, and I don't need that.
Yeah, like I would get up the next morning and like make an egg and put it on top of the bread pudding and call it breakfast.
Yes.
Yeah, you feel
that
me?
Is so good. And I am making, I'm not really into pie, and so I'm making this honey saffron cake that has crushed pistachios on top, and I will very likely be eating that for breakfast with my coffee on Friday.
Yeah, girl. Oh, man, that sounds amazing. See what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those olive oil cakes that you're just like, oh my God, I just can like face plant into it.
That's what I'm talking about, really enjoying that food. I think if you're going to eat food, it should be stuff you really, really love. And I know people who really, really love the traditional, the green bean casseroles or whatever. Nothing wrong with that. But I just get so bored so easily that I'm like, oh, can't we just do something different? So, it sounds delicious, Steph. You're going to have a great holiday. And hopefully everybody listening also, you're eating something wonderful, whether you celebrate today or any other day on the calendar. Doesn't matter. And
that's right.
Drinking something lovely.
Whenever you open that wine on Thanksgiving, be sure to hashtag it so that we can see it. And we'd love to see what everybody else is cooking up, if it's an alternative menu or if it's traditional. So, you know where to find us on the social spaces.
So should we get to the factoids and the Wino Radar? And let's bring it home.
Tell everybody about your factoid.
So what I did is I walked around the Wine Bloggers Conference with a little microphone and did a little vox popping. And when I sat down and went through all the audio today, some of it was really good and some of it didn't come out as good as I wanted it to. So what I'm going to plug in for you guys is a little factoid, first of all, about New Jersey wine with Frank Albano.
All right, this is Frank Albano, and he's representing Visit South Jersey, Jersey Wines. Tell us just a little bit about the wines from Jersey, where they come from, and the best grapes that grow there.
Sure. Well, right now we have 3 separate wine trails, especially down south in South Jersey. We're doing some great things with vinifera, Bordeaux blends, Cabernet Sauvignon, Cabernet Franc, and Merlot. Actually, even some Syrah blends, including Viognier and Syrah. Our wine that we're noted for is called Cordès, which has half Chamberson and half Bordeaux blend. But there's, like I said, several different wine trails that are really doing that are creating great experiences for people that are coming to South Jersey. We're number 7 now in the country producing wines. So come visit us.
Thank you so much. Right. That's exciting. Thanks, Frank.
So that was interesting. And who knew, Steph?
I didn't.
I kind of heard about it a couple years ago. I was in wine school with somebody from New Jersey, but it's not something we often think of. So we thought that would be interesting. They were at the conference representing. And for the Wino Radar, I did catch up with some people doing cool stuff with apps. And one of those people is going to be Adrian Tamblin, and he's from Wine Roots USA. So we're going to listen to what he has to say. And then I'm just going to follow that up with the Color of Wine app with Julie Brosterman of Women in Wine. And it's almost like a wine coloring book.
So it is Adrian Tamblin of Wine Roots, and you're going to tell us a little bit about what it is you do, where you do it, who your audience is, and what you do for the wine world. So I'm going to put this microphone in your face right now. Okay. You ready?
Yes, great, Valerie. Well, thanks for having me here on your guys' little Vox Pop. Yeah, awesome. So we are a group of Sonoma County web developers. We're located here in Sonoma County. And about 2 years ago, we started a project for the wine space, kind of trying to look at the innovation of what the innovation as it relates to consumers and brands and really trying to connect them best with wineries. So the way we've developed our core product, which is called Wine Routes. And what Wine Routes does for the user is really help them curate their own personalized experience in wine country. Basically, a user can come visit the site, and it's an itinerary trip planner, if you will. So think of it almost like a Spotify playlist of the wineries that you might want to go, based on a very set specific filter, say like the amenities that winery has or the varietals of wines that they serve. So really, we want to put the user in the driver's seat so that they can curate the experience. Okay. So that's what we're doing, and we would love it if you visit our website. We have both the desktop as well as a mobile app that you can download in the iOS App Store. Okay. It's called Wine Routes, 2 words, ROUTES, not ROOTS, yes. Just to be clear. And we're most active on Instagram, so find us there, yes.
Okay, and are you on Twitter too?
We are on Twitter, Wine Routes USA on Twitter.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yeah, so I'm here with Julie Brosterman with The Color of Wine by Women in Wine. I think we're connected on LinkedIn now that I think about it. But go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you're doing and spilling the wine.
Okay. So it is a party because we just spilled the wine, but it's also a party for us because we're launching the app today, which is called Color of Wine. All right. It's in the Apple Store. It's free. Okay. Basically, it's a platform for brands to connect with their consumers or new consumers. Okay. They engage us to create a beautiful piece of art that makes people feel like they're in wine country. This is Nina, who's our marketing director. And then people can relax with a glass of wine, color that picture, send it back to the brand, or you share it with friends on social media. And in our next phase, they'll be able to order T-shirts and, cups and mugs and all that, tote bags and all that sort of stuff, too.
Oh, that is
so fantastic. It's really something to say to the consumer. We know you're out there. We know you're stressed. Relax, enjoy your glass of wine without reading the news on your phone or your work email or whatever. And then also creating a community around the mutual interest of loving wine.
So it's more than just shut up and color.
You know what? Shut up and color would be a great tagline. I more picture you'll never drink alone again, because I figure you're sitting at the bar with your phone and coloring. Yes. You don't need a friend then.
And it's called Color of Wine again.
Color of
Available
Wine.
Available on the App Store.
Free.
Android and...
Not Android yet. Not another few weeks.
Coming soon. Well,
thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. I told her about my swear word coloring book.
Oh, you like those coloring books.
Yeah. So I'll plug those in. You guys can check those out. And shout outs.
So many shout outs, I bet, Val.
I'm not going to get everybody in there because I got to talk to so many people, and you've already been listening to me talk for 37 minutes. So put yourself in their shoes, and I'm sorry. Way too many people. But what I'll do is I'll plug in some audio files and links to some of the bloggers that took the time to chat with me while we were at the Wine Bloggers Conference. It's amazing how many people walk the other way when you pull out a microphone. And some people gravitate toward it like moths to a flame.
Oh, yeah.
But it was cool meeting Alan, of course, from our previous episodes. He and his brother, with the help of Sarah, run a nicely done conference. So my first Wine Bloggers Conference, I highly recommend it. Whether you're in the industry or whether you just like to read wine blogs, go out and meet some of your favorite writers. But they had a lot of balls in the air, and it was very well organized. It was really impressive. I also enjoyed chats with, you mentioned Janet Fletcher earlier. Well, she mentioned the writing project she was doing with the Wine Institute. Well, I met Gladys from the Wine Institute, who is working with Janet on those writing projects.
Yes.
Gladys Horiuchi, she was super fun to talk to, and she likes to tweet, so definitely connect with her on Twitter, and I'll link all that up for you. We were also fortunate enough to meet the folks from Gregory White PR, Stephanie, who we've been in conversation with, and Ian, of course. So they were at my table for one of the PR sessions.
It seems like it's such a small world when you go to a conference and you meet these people that are connected with either they're working with somebody we've had on our show, or you get to meet people that just sent us an email, or you just connected with them a couple months ago at another conference, and then it's like crazy.
Yeah, it was funny because I can't remember who I went up to. I'm like, wait a minute, you were at the Society Wine Educators Conference. And it was somebody I didn't have a chance to talk to there, and I got a chance to talk to them at this conference, which was really nice. So, yeah, the wine world, like Lisa Airy said last week, it's very, very small. We're a friendly bunch of people. And people are just happy to share their experience. And everybody's coming from a different angle, which makes it that much more interesting. It's not the same old blah, blah, blah every time you talk to somebody.
Yeah.
I don't care if they have a podcast, they're doing video blogging, regular blogging, writing, PR, whatever it is. Everybody's got a unique story. And I think those of us that like to pull those stories out of people really kind of get off on that kind of thing. So I did sit next to Nicole from the Nibbling Gypsy and Psalms Table on the way to Hannah Winery. And on the way back, I talked to Nina from Lost in Wine. And she's a lovely lady from France. Working with Paul Hobbs right now, and she's getting ready to move back to Cahors in February. Of course, Hannah Winery and Martin Ray, those are the two wineries I did get to visit. Both of them did superb jobs of hosting lunches and dinners, giving us a tour or tasting, whatever was on their itinerary, because each one had a different focus. So I look forward to maybe interviewing some of them eventually on the show as well. And so many others. There's not enough time to send all the virtual hugs that I want to, but I've got some audio to plug in from some of the bloggers you might recognize. And after that's done, we'll move on to shout outs from Steph and Patreon love.
So I'm here with Jeff Burrows at Food Wine Click on Twitter. I'm sure you've seen him, and he's going to tell us a little bit about what he's doing here at the Wine Bloggers Conference and a little bit about his website.
Thanks, Valerie. So my blog is Food Wine Click as well, and my interest is food and wine together. I really don't drink wine by itself. It's really wine at the table is my interest. And then I have lifelong interest in photography, so I really try to spend some time to make the pictures really appealing. And I hadn't been back out to California to do any wine tasting in 5 years, so I came out early. As soon as they announced, I was like, okay, I'm coming out to do some independent touring first.
All right.
But I love.
Where are you normally?
Well, I live in Minnesota, and for winery visits in the last couple of years, my son is in France, so that helped.
All right.
So we've been doing France and Italy quite a bit. And here it's to see people again, to meet new people, that our common community, to learn, and also I did an excursion. They're very well organized, and spent the day yesterday and today in Mendocino, and I've never been to Mendocino before.
Great.
So
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So I'm here with Sarita Chavis, and she's from Vine Me Up, and she's going to tell us a little bit about what she's doing here at the Wine Bloggers Conference. Sarita.
So hi, thanks for the interview. My podcast is called The Swirl Suite, and it's me. It's not just me. It's actually me. It's Girl Meets Glass. It's The Liquor Lady. It's Vino Noir, and then it's Vino 301. So all five of us are on a podcast together, and we sort of paint the picture of the wine lifestyle. So we talk about everything from beer, liquor to wine, what we enjoy and how we like it. Okay. So that's our podcast. But I've been a wine blogger for a number of years, and my blog is Vine Me Up.
All right. So I think I met Vino Noir, Liz Glennis.
Yes.
I met Leslie.
Yes.
From 301.
Yes, great memory.
And who was the other one?
She's not here.
Okay.
Yeah, she's not here.
Right. So, and we can find you where?
You can find us everywhere on social media at Swirl Suite.
Swirl, S-W-E-E-T or S-U-I-T-E?
S-U-I-E-T, yes.
That's very important. Well, thank you so much, Serena.
Hi.
Thank you.
So I'm here with Seth Buckley of Musings by the Glass. And could you tell us a little bit about your blog, where we can find you on social media, and who your audience is?
Sure. So again, my name is Seth, and my blog is Musings by the Glass. You can find that at musingsbytheglass.com, and my social signs are at Musings by the Glass. And I live in Hawaii, and what I try to do is support the local community there, the restaurants, the sommeliers, the chefs, by going to their restaurants, talking stories about them and about their history, and pairing some of their foods with wine.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, my name is Allison. My company is called Please the Palate, and my blog is pleasethepalate.com/blog, because my day job is that I do marketing and events in the wine industry, working with wine regions to do trade events to promote to the media and buyers in the restaurant retail space. And then I started blogging when I started my business 6 years ago.
Wow.
Just as a way, friends always ask me, where should I eat? What should I drink? What should I do? And so I just started sharing my experiences.
Okay.
And I also am a freelance writer, so I write a weekly column in the Napa Valley Register, and I write for some other online, California Wine Advisor, and just have fun sharing the stories of the people, because I think knowing who makes the wine, who the places are, what they have to offer, just changes your perspective on just seeing a bottle on a shelf.
It does. And the social spaces, where do we find you?
On Twitter and Instagram, it's PLS The Palate. P-A-L-A-T-E, like the one your tongue, not the other ones, or the boxes.
Yes.
And on Facebook, it's Please the Palate.
Please the Palate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you.
Well, hi. Thank you very much, Valerie. Thank you. So I'm Lori from Dracaena Wines, and the story behind the label. So people do know us as the wine with the dog. So the picture is actually an actual drawing of Draco, which was our Weimaraner. And Draco, not Harry Potter, Draco was named after the constellation of all the dragon souls. And so we had him for 14 years, which is amazing for a Weimaraner, because they're 8 to 10 years. So to have 14 years, amazing. But he was my baby. So when he passed, I did not do very well at all. And I still don't do well. But Mike, my husband, bought me a Draco tree, and we put it in, his spot, and as a kind of a living memorial to him. And I went to school. My undergrad is in biology, and we both have master's degrees in science. His is food science, mine is biology. So when we were coming up with our winery name, I knew right from the beginning I was very adamant that Draco had to be part of it, because we've started this so long ago, it just came to fruition in 2013, but the thought was there for a long time. So he had to be there. And so Dracaena is actually the genus name for a Draco tree.
Okay.
So our label is hand-drawn by my best friend, Sonia Gerard, and she lives in Washington. She's amazing. And she hand-drew it for us as just a picture that we have in our house. And then when we did the label, she extracted him, because he was in a vineyard.
Okay.
She extracted him, and that's how we got our label. So our label is Draco standing in front of a shadow of a Draco tree. So what I say is, he's our heart and soul of our winery, and he stands guard of every bottle that we produce. So that is where Dracaena Wines come from.
That is so sweet, and I understand you make Cabernet Franc. And are there any other details you want to talk about your wines?
So we are Cab Franc, and we are actually the founders of Cab Franc Day, which is getting bigger and bigger. This is our third year, and it's December 4th, and I chose the day because it's the anniversary of Cardinal Richelieu's death, and he's basically the father of Cab Franc. So he's the one who brought the vines over to Loire Valley. So I chose that day as memorial to him. And this year we have 25 wineries And we've gone international for the first time. I have a South African winery participating and an Australian winery participating. So it's December 4th. Our Twitter chat is going to start off at 8 p.m. And all you have to do is go grab your favorite bottle of Cab Franc and join in the chat and just show your Cab Franc love. And so we specialize in Cab Franc, but this year is exciting because we are now expanding. And in March, we're going to be releasing a rosé for the first time.
And where can our listeners find you in the social spaces?
Okay, so I am all over social media as at Dracaena Wines, which is DRACAENA Wines. I'm on Twitter, I am on Instagram, I am on Facebook, I am on Snapchat, I am on Google+, Pinterest, wherever there is social media, I am there.
Val, you got so much great content. I think it's so cool that we could have a whole episode that was recapping the Wine Bloggers Conference and then introducing so many new people to it, because our reach goes beyond the U.S., wine bloggers, so it's cool that more and more people will know about what that is and know what they're missing out on. So hopefully we'll see them in Walla Walla next year. But my shout outs go to our listeners because it's Thanksgiving and I'm feeling very grateful. We wouldn't be here really behind the mics every week if it wasn't for you, our listeners. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts, and thank you to our patrons because these people support us on our crowdfunding platform called Patreon. And so it was cool that Val got to spend some time with Jeff E. from We Like Drinking podcast. He was one of our very first Tenacious Tasters. Lynn from Savor the Harvest blog, so she's also a wine blogger. Sebastian of Sassy Italy Tours, Jen in Maryland, David and Lisa in Illinois, and it's not 5 o'clock. I need to drink more wine. And we don't care listeners. Meg in South Dakota, Clay in Arizona, and in California, John, Andrew and Iswani, Chantel in Ontario, Mary Lou in Pennsylvania, Go Steelers, Kathy in Georgia, and in Colorado, Chris and Janet and Diane. Oh, by the way, Chris and Janet said they are probably going to stop by sometime and surprise me while we're recording and jump on the mic.
Fun. That'd be fun.
That would be so fun. And Illinois, thank you to Steve and Renee. Thank you to Kathy in Tennessee, Ashley in North Carolina, and our Tastemaker listeners. Thank you so much, David in Scotland, Carol in Kentucky, Karen in California, and our Winetastic listener, Laura. Thank you guys so much. And if you are a listener feeling like you don't know enough about Patreon and what we're talking about, you can go to patreon.com wine25podcast. That's patreon.com/wine25podcast on how to get involved and have exclusive content, and you get early releases and you get swag, and there's a drawing every month. So, and you don't know what we're going to come up with next, really. So it's all good. And what else, Val?
Well, we're here for you every single week. Between episodes, you can find us in the social spaces. Make sure you check out our website, wine25.com, because you can connect with all our social spaces there, but there is a constant reminder about the next book club.
Yep.
On there. Extra links, extra pictures. It's kind of an extension of the podcast. So definitely check that out. It's usually published the same day as the episode airs or within an hour or so of it. So it's usually there, or we'll put it on the Facebook and social spaces for you the next day. And we also have a community Facebook page. I have to say, I haven't been in there lately. I've been off Facebook for like a week, and it's been a beautiful thing.
Oh,
but
no, they're blowing it up. We've got so many great posts. It's so fun. All of the pictures and people sharing advice and sharing their own wino radars, which is really cool.
That's fantastic. So go over there, be part of the community, and definitely find us on the Twitter, as I like to say. I'm Wine Gal Unboxed. I'm also on the Vino with Val Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest pages. But Steph, you can find her as The Wine Heroine on all those social spaces as well. But until next week, everybody, we're going to wish you a happy Turkey Day, happy Thanksgiving, happy American eating holiday, happy just being thankful for something wonderful you're in your glass and being with the people you want to be with today. So
thanks for listening.
Cheers, Steph.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Wine to 5 podcast. Be sure to check us out at Facebook/WineTWO5 and tune in next week for more fun and useful sip tips.